Hello everyone! Today I will share with you all the updates I've made since my previous video about C++ web server. Before, I wanted just to make it work, but this time I was mainly focused on making it work better and adding a couple of useful features. So after implementing basic features like routing and HTML page responses, I reworked the core component, which is concurrency. In the previous video I used the fork function, but then I decided to move to the threads pool. That decision cost me about a week. I've made several failed attempts. I was mostly fighting with my limited knowledge of C++. So I created a sandbox project to play with threads and their synchronization. After figuring out my way to a working solution, I implemented it into the main project. So, threads pool. In my current implementation, I have a client connections queue that contains accepted client sockets, and I have worker threads, each of which pops client socket from the queue and processes requests in a continuous loop, while the stop flag is centralized. To terminate the server, I added a signal handler. After pressing Ctrl+C, it closes all sockets and joins worker threads to avoid any leaks, at least the most obvious ones, and finishes the execution gracefully. So, we have a shared connections queue used by multiple threads, which means we have a synchronization problem to solve. What is a synchronization problem other than the word I always misspell? As I've already said, it is a problem when threads access the same memory. Each data manipulation task takes some time to complete, and during this time span, data could be changed by other threads. To avoid this situation, we grant exclusive access to that memory using synchronization mechanisms. There are a few of them. The first is mutex, which is a lock that makes sure that only one thread will execute a certain part of the code. The second is semaphore, which can allow the code section to be executed by multiple threads at the same time, like a limited threshold. It is not exactly our case. We also have a critical section. Without deep dive into details, it is kind of mutex but simpler and lightweight. Also, the mutex can be used to sync processes, but the critical sections cannot. Later, I also found condition variables in C++, but I will tell you about it a bit later. So I created a mutex to grant exclusive access to a connections queue and access to the console, so my log messages would not turn into a mass of symbols. At first I just had a loop that checks for available connections, but it looked weird, so I asked ChatGPT for some suggestions, and they gave me the idea to use a condition variable to notify one of the threads waiting for the task about the new connection. I found it interesting and tried it myself. It worked perfectly. Then I faced some problems with passing logger and other dependencies to my threads. The thread function needs to be static. This means it can't get access to my class fields. After struggling a bit with it, I came again to ChatGPT for some ideas. Shame on me. Anyway, it's a genius. What if I create a static function to pass a pointer to the instance of the server class, and then from the static function call my non-static method from the server class? And it worked. What a relief. Also, I've added static file support, so now I can use CSS and JavaScript in my HTML pages. I also revoked HTTP request message parsing because there were some problems with cookies parsing. The next milestone was to add JSON parsing, so I would be able to post forms and process given data. I was quite ambitious about it and thought that I could make a parser myself. I did not. So I went to GitHub and found this parser that could be added to my project with a single file, which contains more than 24,000 lines of code. 24,000. I think that I a bit underestimated the complexity of this task. Thank you, good man, for your hard work. Now I can simply use this function and access my post request parameters. For the end of this video, I wanted to use all of the developed features, so I've created a couple of pages just to demonstrate the results. That's it for this video. Maybe I will continue to work on this project, but for now, thank you for watching and see you in the next one.